Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Estonian on the home side, half Finnish on the away side. Both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel before, and I've had some really nice beers from them actually, but this one is a different style than I've had from either of them before, and it's also a style of beer that you don't see brewed too often by the modern craft breweries actually, but it's also one of my favourite styles of German traditional beer, and it's a very quirky example of the style as well. So hopefully it makes for a very interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So for this review then, for the home side of things, we are going to go to a little place called Keila to the southwest of Tallinn in northwestern Estonia, and we're having a look at another beer from Lehe Pruulikoda. So this particular beer is called the Three Pleasures Whiskey. It comes in at 9% ABV. And it's a Doppelbock aged in rye whiskey barrels, and it's brewed in collaboration with Coolhead Brew, who come from Tuusula, a little bit to the north of Helsinki in Finland. So yeah, I love German Doppelbocks. You know, I've always really liked this style. It's, you know, the kind of Scottish sweet tooth. You know, the traditional Scotch ales are very brown sugary, so the Doppelbock was a style that I really came to like very naturally. But yeah, this one I think should be a really quirky example. You know, in my experience, the Germans aren't really very into barrel aging, at least from what I've seen. The Doppelbock is a style that you don't see barrel aged all that often, although the exception would of course be the icebox and things like that from the likes of Schwarzbräu and you know, obviously Schneiderweiss have their Eisbock as well. So yeah, not a style that you see barrel aged all that often, and it's also a style that you don't see brewed that often by the modern kind of American style craft breweries, if you like. So yeah, hopefully it turns out to be an interesting one. Rye whiskey is also something that I've not had too much experience with, so yeah, this should hopefully be a really nice and quirky beer. And as I say, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. Very nice to see a kind of Estonian-Finnish collaboration too. So yeah, let's go for it, guys. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Lehe Pruulikoda and Coolhead Brew. You will see more reviews added to those lists in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for the Estonian beers that I've reviewed for you, and another one for all the Finnish beers. This beer will appear in both of those lists because it is dual nationality. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. And do let me know some other kind of craft brewed Doppelbocks in the comment section below as well. This is a style that I always enjoy reviewing. So yeah, let's go for it then, guys. Let's have a little look at the notes for Lehe Pruulikoda first off then. So as I've mentioned to you already, Lehe Pruulikoda are from Keila in Harjumaa county in Estonia, to the southwest of Tallinn in the northwest of the country, and the brewery was founded back in June of 2013 by Tarmo and Gristel Tali. So Tarmo had worked in the IT sector for many years, and he'd also homebrewed, while Gristel had a background in business but also within the IT sector from what I understand, and she was very interested to kind of try and hone her skills in a new type of business. So with their combined expertise, they had a very solid basis to build up the brewery. But during his home brewing days, Tarmo was really interested in craft beer because of all the different kind of yeast strains, malts and hops and all of these other things that you could use. And apparently he was constantly asked by his friends when his beers would be available in bars and shops, and this really just made him want to brew professionally. So he says that the beers that he brews are ones that he would just like to drink himself, and you know, they just kind of went from there. He had a lot of brewing recipes from his home brewing days, and then they just went for it commercially and, you know, did very well. But these guys are currently based in an industrial estate in Keila, and they've gradually built up the brewery over the past few years, and it now has a total capacity of around 300,000 litres of beer per year. A little bit later on though, in 2019, Tarmo and Gristel decided that they wanted to withdraw from the company and return to the IT industry, so they sold the company to Talon Nurmius, who is the owner of Uba ja Hummel, a shop in Tallinn, and you might have seen my out and about video I did for there actually. I would recommend you go and have a look at that because, you know, it's a very nice bar. There's a very good selection of craft beer as well, and it's right kind of on the water almost actually. You get a really nice view if you go and sit out the front of it actually. But Harjumaa was founded back in 2014 and they've been expanding over the years, and in 2017 they also have been brewing, since 2017 they've also been brewing their beers as a gypsy brewery as well, although they are now brewed in the brewery at Keila, which is pretty cool. When I was actually in the shop, this is where this beer was bought actually, when I was in the shop they didn't have any of the Harjumaa beers unfortunately, because it would have been really quite cool to review some of those for you. But maybe the next time I go back to Estonia I can get Tanel on the channel and do a little bit of an interview with him actually. That would be really cool. But yeah, as of September 2020 when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced in the region of 140 different kinds of beer, and quite a lot of them seem to be very high alcohol. The last beer that I had from these guys was the Harassment by IPA, and that was a big 13% monster West Coast kind of triple IPA. It was a very, very nice beer, but I think the 330ml bottle was a little bit extreme actually. But yeah, it's probably one that I would in future share with one or two friends actually. But yeah, definitely one that I would recommend you try, especially if they got it on tap. You can just get a little taster of it and have a go at it, because it is very, very nicely done. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Lehe Pruulikoda for the moment. These guys are a very well respected Estonian craft brewery. If you want to learn more about this brewery, then you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's see how we get on with the Finnish side of things then. Let's go on to Coolhead Brew. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Coolhead Brew are based in Tuusula, a little bit to the north of Helsinki, the capital of Finland, and these guys were founded back in 2014 by Kleber Gonçalves, who is originally from Brazil. So Kleber worked in technology for a number of years, and this took him to work in England and then to Finland, where he still is today. But he started planning the brewery in 2013, and then he officially established the company in 2014. They managed to get the production up and running in February of 2016. So there was quite a lot of time went into actually gathering all the equipment and things like that, and they've just gradually been building up the capacity of the brewery ever since and developing new recipes and things like that. Today they employ 8 people and they're brewing around 180,000 litres of beer per year. So they brew a lot of fruit beers and things, which is very common in Brazil. There's quite a number of sours in there, IPAs, and they also do a good bit of barrel aging as well these days from what I understand. Thanks to Riku, who is my Finnish beer mule, you will see some more beers from these guys reviewed on the channel. I've had 2 beers from them so far. That was the Hulk double IPA, which was a collaboration beer. I forget exactly who that was with. I think it might have been Gamma from Denmark and maybe Sudden Death from Germany, if I remember rightly. And then I also had the lemon licorice sour, but unfortunately that video got lost when one of my memory cards corrupted. So yeah, I need to still see if I can recover that one. I've not done anything with that, so yeah, fingers crossed I can recover that one. But yeah, they do a lot of barrel aging these days as well, and as of September 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 170 different beers, and you will see more of these in Riku box number 2, so keep your eyes out for that. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Coolhead Brew for the moment. Definitely nice to see some Estonian-Finnish collaboration going on, and yeah, these guys are what I think Coolhead are probably going to be one of the first breweries that really get outside of Finland a little bit. These guys are doing some really, really interesting stuff. But my experience of the Finnish beers that Riku has sent me has all been very, very positive so far actually. It's quite nice to be able to review Finnish beers, because for a very, well, I think even still, they're very difficult to get outside of Finland. I'm just very lucky that Riku is able to help me out with that. So yeah, check out some of my Finnish beer reviews as well. Coolhead are definitely a very up and coming brewery over there. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about them. If you want to learn a little bit more, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram, and you know, that'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all of those different beers. If you do want to keep more up to date with the Finnish beer scene, I would recommend that you use a website called Olut Posti, which is basically, it's kind of almost like the Finnish equivalent of beernews.se actually. It's a very good resource that for learning about the Finnish breweries. So yeah, although I have to say Riku has been helping me out a lot with the notes and things, so again, massive shout out to him for that. So yeah, try some of the Finnish beers. The standard over there these days is pretty damn good as well, actually. So yeah, let's get on and have a taste of this beer then. I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. You can see there's a nice cello on this one. I'm not sure exactly what the idea behind the artwork on this one actually is, but there you can see the Three Pleasures whiskey. This does seem to be a little bit of you know, this does seem to be a little bit of a kind of series that these guys do. They've also got the Three Pleasures coffee, which I would love to try at some point. But yeah, this one is being described as a rye Doppelbock. As I've told you before, this is one of my favourite German styles of traditional beer, aged in rye whiskey barrels, this one. Rye whiskey is something that I don't think is too common in Scotland. I think it's more of an American bourbon type thing. But it says on the side here, it's a busy, bustling bar in downtown. You have not seen each other for years. You order your rye whiskies and sit down in the quietest corner you can find. Away from the happy sound of Friday evening bar, there is plenty to catch up. So yeah, pretty cool, this one. And as you can see, quite a few of the breweries have this. There seems to be like an Estonian craft beer collective there, but you will see a lot of these beers that you'll get in Estonia, they do have this Untitled, if I'm pronouncing that properly. Probably not, but yeah, the Estonian craft beer thing. There is actually, for those of you who are interested in trying more Estonian beers, there is actually the Estonian Craft Beer Club. So if you put that in Google, you'll see for about €40 a month, I think it is, they'll send you between 10 and 12 Estonian craft beers. So I was thinking about joining that, but I think, you know, to review 10 Estonian beers every month is quite an ask actually. If I might contact them and see maybe if I can ask if I can order a beer like maybe every 3 months or something like that, because I would like to have a fairly steady stream of Estonian beers. So yeah, to review 12 every month though is a little bit, you know, it is a little bit of a push actually. So see what we can do. I would, as I say, I'd love to review Estonian beers more regularly for you on the channel. So we'll see what we can do about that. But as I say, my good friends Einar and Sim over there in Estonia, you know, these guys, you know, I will be over there to visit these guys fairly regularly, I would think. So yeah, little fruit fly, get lost. You're not having my Doppelbock. But yeah, this one looks very, very nice. Definitely one of the darker Doppelbocks I've come across as well, actually. So yeah, this one comes in at 9% ABV, so it is, you know, it is quite a high alcohol Doppelbock at that. I think, other than the Icebox, this might be the highest alcohol one that I've had on the channel. That probably is right, actually. I think the highest ones, I think usually the German ones are somewhere in the region of like 7.2%. Celebrator, I think, is 7.2. The Assam Bock is about 7.4, 7.5, something like that from Weltenberger. Corbinian, is that might be a little bit stronger from Weihenstephaner. I can't remember, but yeah, 9% is definitely heavier than you would normally find from a German Doppelbock anyway. But this beer, look at the colour of this. This is crazy. If we shine the light through this one really is very, very dark, and it's a really, really dark ebony colour, this one. Normally you would expect these beers to be around the same colour as the label, actually. This is definitely one of the darkest Doppelbocks that I've come across, but you can see there's a solid third finger of a frothy, I would say kind of creamy, fawny coloured head on this one. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. There's a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there, but overall I have to say it looks very nice. I wonder, the colour of the beer will of course be down to what types of malts they've used. I don't know if the barrel aging would affect the colour of the beer all that much. But the two things that affect your colour, generally speaking, are the types of malts that you use and also the length of the boil that the beer undergoes, because that affects the level of caramelisation of the sugars that you get. But yeah, really, really nicely, really nice looking beer, this one, and you can smell some of these lovely Doppelbocky notes coming off of this already. So let's have a little look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Really curious about this beer. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, straight away with this one, it's the barrel aging that jumps out at you with this. You get that lovely kind of woody backbone to the beer, a lovely smooth oakiness. It's almost got a kind of, it's got quite a leathery type vibe to it, this one. I find this beer very leathery in its aroma. As I said to you, I do like a little bit of whiskey. I as I say, outside of the videos that I do, I don't really drink very much, to be quite honest with you. You know, yeah, I really don't drink very much at all outside of the beer videos, but the the rye whiskey is just something that I've never really had much experience with. I know that my friend over in America, who you will see on some of the American videos next summer, he's really into his bourbons and stuff. I've not got too much experience with American bourbons because, you know, being Scottish, it's kind of like, why would you? But, you know, the American whiskies, I think, I would be very curious to see what they're like, but it's, this one, the bourbons, I've always found that the bourbon, when you get bourbon barrel aging as opposed to whiskey barrel aging, it almost just comes across as a little bit sweeter, so you do get a lovely bit of a kind of brown sugary note out of this one, and you can smell the woodiness that you get in this almost comes across as just a little bit more kind of musky because of that rye whiskey things. I think I have had one beer before that has been rye whiskey barrel aged, and I forget exactly which one it was, but I remember thinking the same. It was just a little bit more musky in terms of the kind of bourbon notes that you were getting out of it. The other key thing to remember with these is when it's spelled W-H-I-S-K-E-Y, that means that it's non-Scottish whiskey. It's either from the States or from Ireland or whatever. There's whiskey all over the place. The Indians are doing whiskey now. I think I tried an Indian whiskey once and it was pretty nice. You know, there's some really good whiskey out there from other countries. But you know, at home in Scotland you do get some of the whiskey snobs that say, oh, if it's not Scottish, it's no good. Bollocks. You get some really nice whiskies from lots of different countries. But yeah, this one is the woodiness you get out of this is very nice, and we've just covered one aspect of the aroma with this. So yeah, in terms of the rest of the beer, I mean, with this one straight away, you get a lovely, really big treacly molasses note out of the beer. You get a little bit of breadiness out of it as well, that lovely German kind of rye bread quality. There's a few nutty elements to it as well. It's really very nice actually. I really like how this one, I really like how it goes together. There's a nice little bit of kind of sweet. As I say, you do get a little bit sweeter caramel out of this one, but you get the big, thick, treacly molasses notes, those highly caramelised brown sugars. There's a little bit of a kind of caramelly, biscuity sort of thing going on, a McVitie's digestive biscuity note to the beer, and yeah, that kind of all sits on top of that woody note that I was kind of describing for you earlier on. The nutty notes that you get out of this beer are very, very nice, and yeah, I think it's really nice how all of this goes together. But yeah, the woodiness, as I say, the kind of woody barrel aged side of this beer is really what forms the backbone of the beer. At the back of the nose, you do get a bit more breadiness out of it. You get some really nice kind of brown sugary qualities in there as well. And yeah, I do like how this goes together. On the hoppy side of things, there is a wee touch. You do get a wee touch of earthiness in this, but when it's barrel aged, most of the hoppy characters will have dropped out of the beer. But there's a wee bit of that kind of earthiness coming out of it. You can pick up one or two little very slight floral notes, and there's a wee bit of grassiness in there as well. But this beer, in terms of aroma, it does have a really nice kind of fruity element to it. So when you take this beer in the aroma, you get a lovely little bit of a sharper raisiny note out of the beer. There are a few kind of plummy, maybe even slightly cherryish notes coming out of this one. You get a really good mix of raisin, plum, and you really get a good mix of raisiny, plummy, and almost slightly cherry notes out of the beer. There's a little bit of a kind of figgy note to the beer too, but then you've also got some lovely blackcurranty and blackberry-ish sweeter blackberry notes coming out of it too. So I do wonder, is this a beer that's just using, you know, the traditional northern brewer from Germany as the hop, or are they maybe using a few American hops? That, you know, there's a few examples. Eureka, Williamette would both work. Bramley's Cross from England that they use quite often in the barley wines is also a very nice example of a hop that you can use in beers like this, but there is something just distinctively German about the hoppy character in there as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if it is just, you know, straight up northern brewer that's in this one. So yeah, it seems just from the aroma they might have focused a little bit more on playing around with the malt base a little bit and kept the hops, you know, fairly traditional. Just going from the aroma, I would say that there is a bit more complexity to the malt base with this one, but the hops are kind of what you would normally expect of it. But yeah, lovely aroma to this one. Take a bit of time to enjoy that before you taste the beer, but we're going to have a taste of this one now and just see how we get on. So yeah, this one is the Three Pleasures Whiskey, a rye barrel-aged Doppelbock coming in at 9% ABV, brewed by Lehe Pruulikoda in Keila to the southwest of Tallinn in collaboration with Coolhead Brew, who are from Tuusula to the north of Helsinki in Finland. Let's get stuck into this one. Slanja, skål, tervisex, kipis. Cheers. Yeah, I'm going to just say this is a beautiful, beautiful beer. It's one of these ones, the thing you have to remember with the Doppelbock, and it's quite easy to forget with some of the examples of the style that you'll find, you know, the Doppelbock is a lager, and it's a very, in this example, it's got a lovely, really big, powerful flavour, but it still retains just that almost lightness that you get from the lager styles. It has a big oiliness to it, but at the same time, you do still get a degree of crispness out of this one, and you can kind of gather that from the way that this beer retains its head, actually. I'm not sure how long this would have been barrel aged for, it didn't say, but it is a beautifully done beer, so, you know, thumbs up to both Lehe and Coolhead for this. They've done an awesome job at this. I think this is very nice. Yeah, this one I think is it's really nice. It actually has quite a bit of a charred kind of note to it as well, which is quite interesting. That could well explain, maybe there's a wee touch of carafa or something like that in this beer, just a very small touch. But then again, usually when it comes to whiskey barrels, I'm not an expert in this process, but usually they char the inside of them, so it could be a little bit from that. Could be a freshly charred keg, or, you know, something like that. But yeah, the flavour you get out of this, it certainly does have a bit of that kind of roasty, toasty, well-fired, bread crusty note to it. But yeah, this one comes across really, really nicely. So straight away with this beer, you get that nice kind of woody quality that just blankets the middle of your tongue. You can feel that it's got a lovely smoothness to it, but at the same time, some of that kind of charred note that I was talking about just kind of sits there, and you can really feel like it's like you've kind of got that. You have that kind of solid. How would you say? You've got that lovely kind of just smoothness of the wood there, that lovely oaky quality, that just blankets the middle of your tongue straight away. On top of that, it feels as if it's kind of glazed a little bit with you know, these kind of brown sugary notes from the rye, but you do get that kind of grainy and almost really toasty bread crusty quality. It almost feels as if that's kind of infused into the it almost feels as if that's kind of infused into the kind of woody characters that the beer has, actually. So that's a really interesting point to take away from this one. You will feel that the further that you go into the flavour with this beer, the you know, the flavour of this one, it really does just get drier, and I like that about the beer, because the other Doppelbock elements, they just kind of linger there and sit there on top of this, of the kind of roasty toasty backbone that the beer has. The barrel aging, I mean, it really adds a very interesting aspect to the Doppelbock, I have to say. But yeah, the aroma, the flavour rather, out of this is just lovely. So yeah, on top of that, we've only, as I say, we've only really talked about the woodiness that this beer has. When you go towards the back third of your palate, you do get a little bit more of that kind of drier, grainier aspect, that almost muskier flavour, which is due to the kind of rye thing. It's a very kind of brown bready, but also quite grainy. I love German rye bread. And you know, it is, you know, you get it commonly in other countries as well, like Czech and everything. But yeah, that kind of German rye bready quality, you can feel that sitting there in the back third of your tongue. Some of the grainy aspects coming out of it, and it is almost just a little touch kind of sweeter as well. But as you move forward into the kind of middle third of your tongue, that's when you start to get more of the brown sugar. So on top of that kind of really that well-fired bread crusty toasty kind of thing there, I do wonder if there's a bit of carafa in this. I really do. It's just got a little bit of that kind of vibe about it. But yeah, you do get some of the brown sugary notes sitting on top of that. It's a very kind of toasty brown sugar. It is at the same time very sweet. It does have a bit of that in the very centre of your palate. You do get a bit of that kind of stronger treacly molasses note. In the very centre you get a sweet caramel. Underneath that you get a slightly darker treacle molasses, and as you gradually move out from that you start to get a slightly sweeter brown sugar, and then eventually as you're reaching the edge of your palate you'll start to get more of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing. So yeah, back third of your tongue quite bready and a little bit grainy. Middle third of your palate has that kind of almost pyramid of brown sugar complexity to it, if you like. But if you go to the centre of your palate and then just move forward a bit, you will feel that there's a wee kind of nutty flavour develops out of this one as well. And of course all of that on both the middle and the back third of your tongue, underneath that you do have that whole woody complexity from the barrel aging that's sitting there. I do think if you go to the front corners of your palate and then just move diagonally back, I think you can feel a little bit of a kind of musky, almost slightly leathery flavour developing out of this beer too as you go further into the aftertaste. So that's another very, very interesting aspect to the flavour of this one, I think. So yeah, I do like how everything pieces together in this one. On the hoppy side of things then, the back corners of the palate, there's definitely a good little bit of earthiness to this one. That builds a good bridge with the slightly roasty or toastier aspects of this beer. As you move further forward along the sides of the palate, it does get a little bit smoother. As you reach the very kind of front kind of corners of your palate, you will get a little touch of floral quality out of this one. As I say, when it's barrel aged, most of the hoppy character will drop out. I think the Northern Brewer hops are about 7% alpha acid or something like that, so yeah, most of the bitterness of this beer will drop out of it. As you go around the front corners of the palate though, you do get a little bit of a lighter grassiness there. Then the front third of your tongue is all about that oily bubble where the fruity esters push their way out of the beer. So if you go towards the back of that, for me, it almost feels as if there's quite a dry, toasty border between the front third of your palate and the middle third of your palate. There is just a little bit of an almost roasty cake edge sitting there in the middle of the palate. You know, on the front third of your tongue, like I say, you've got a little bit of an oily bubble there. Towards the back of that, you'll get some of the kind of slightly plummy, pruny kind of notes out of it. Then as you move further forward on this one, it's a little bit more kind of juicy and figgy, and then as you reach the very kind of front tip of your tongue, you will feel the more kind of black curranty, blackberry-ish fruity flavours coming out of that. And as you go further into the aftertaste, you will feel that front third of your palate just dries out a little bit, and you can feel one or two elements of chariness, sort of charred quality, just pushing their way through this one actually. But yeah, in terms of fruitiness and things like that, and just the way this beer goes together, I think is very, very nice. The Doppelbock, as I say, it's not a style that you find barrel aged too often, but I think this one they've done it very well. I think the one thing with the barrel aging, I think the rye barrel aging works really well with this. I wouldn't be so sure about bourbon barrel aging a Doppelbock, to be honest with you, because the thing is that I've always found that barrel aging kind of thins out the mouthfeel a bit. Although it does add really complex flavours, but the Doppelbock, compared to the other sort of beers like, you know, the Scotch ales, the barley wines, the imperial stouts and stuff like this, the kind of commonly barrel-aged styles, if you like, the Doppelbock is lighter in its mouthfeel because it is a lager beer. So yeah, as I say, I think that's probably the main reason why you don't see these barrel-aged all that much. But I think with the rye barrel aging, I think that actually does work pretty well with this one, and I think it works in a way that might not necessarily work if it was bourbon barrel aged or something like that. Maybe doing this with like sherry barrels or, you know, brandy barrels could also be an interesting experiment as well. Who knows? It's something I would actually, as a homebrew, if I was homebrewing regularly, I'd love to play with Doppelbocks and put them in, you know, Lafroig and Ardbeg and all the different whiskey casks and things like that. That would be an interesting experiment, but yeah, you'd have to get a solid base recipe first for that. But yeah, I think this is nice. It's definitely an interesting beer from both breweries involved. In terms of the mouthfeel then, let's talk about that. So I would say this is at the top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. It's kind of around there. Because it is a lager beer, you do have an element of lightness to the mouthfeel, which is understandable. It still has that kind of German, almost slickness and smoothness. The Brauhaus smoothness, I like to call it, but probably Germans will take the mick if I say that. But yeah, it's got a lovely, that kind of typical German smoothness to it. This beer overall, as I say, it's quite slick. It's very smooth, and it does have a slight degree of oiliness to it as well, which you would come to expect of a Doppelbock. In terms of the bitterness out of this beer, this one I think is quite low in terms of its bitterness. There is a little bit of it though because of the charred elements that it has. I suspect a bit of carafa malt in this one, like I said, but also partly that will be due to the barrel aging and the rye, I would think. But yeah, it's got a really good... it's got a really nice kind of combination. There is just a slight bitterness to it, but quite low in terms of IBUs, 20, 25, something like that I would suspect. But yeah, the malt base and the woody notes, as I say, it's got a bit of a dry kind of dry but smooth backbone, some lovely nice kind of brown sugars to it, a little degree of oiliness, but otherwise I found this one very, very smooth and, as I said, quite a slick beer. The hoppy side of things, not too bitter from that. I think most of the bitterness, to be honest, comes from the malty, woody side of the beer, but you've also got a very nice, juicy and very slightly sharp fruity note out of this one, but I really like how it goes together. But yeah, this is a solid beer for me, a really interesting one to review. I have enjoyed this, and I'm going to enjoy sipping on this for the rest of the night. So yeah, this beer was the Three Pleasures Whiskey, a 9% Doppelbock aged in rye whiskey barrels from Lehe Pruulikoda in Keila to the southwest of Tallinn, brewed in collaboration with Coolhead Brew from Tuusula to the north of Helsinki in Finland. So yeah, thumbs up to both of the breweries involved in this one. Another very interesting beer, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on this one as well. So let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Lehe Pruulikoda and Coolhead Brew. You will see more Finnish and Estonian reviews over the next little while, and it's definitely been cool to see these breweries collaborate together. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Thank you again for watching my reviews, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Three Pleasures Whiskey, 9% rye whiskey barrel aged Doppelbock from Lehe Pruulikoda in Estonia and Coolhead Brew in Finland. Slange, skål, tervesex, kipis. Cheers.